This episode of the BIC Magazine Weekly Industry Report is brought to you by Draeger Rental and Safety Services, your trusted source for industrial safety services and technology. We'll share more about Draeger later in the episode. Welcome to the BIC Magazine Weekly Industry Report, your go-to source for the latest updates in the energy sector. I'm Samantha, your AI podcast host, and today is October 4th, 2024. In today's episode, the U.S. dockworker strike comes to an end. Amber Energy becomes the most likely to acquire CITGO and other top news from the energy sector this week. But before we get started, we ask that if you enjoy our podcast, please like, comment, and share it with your colleagues. Your support helps us grow and allows us to bring you even more exciting updates from the energy sector in the future. With that being said, let's jump into the first story. We'll kick things off with a sigh of relief on a story that's grabbed national headlines this week. A tentative deal has been reached between U.S. dock workers and port operators, ending a 3-day strike that had halted shipping across the East and Gulf coasts. The agreement includes a 62% wage hike over 6 years, raising average wages from $39 to $63 an hour. The strike, the largest of its kind in nearly 50 years, caused major disruptions, leaving dozens of ships anchored and threatening shortages of key goods. While the immediate strike ends, key issues like port automation remain unresolved, with negotiations set to continue into early 2025. Stay locked into all of our channels for any updates on this story as negotiations continue. Next up, we're nearing the finish line on the race to acquire CITGO, as Amber Energy Inc., a U.S.-based energy group, has been chosen to acquire PDV Holding Inc., the parent company of CITGO Petroleum, by a court-appointed special master. Led by industry veterans Gregory Goff and Jeff Stevens, Amber Energy is backed by strategic investors, including Elliott Investment Management. With decades of experience, Goff and Stevens plan to revitalize CITGO, focusing on boosting operational performance and positioning it for long-term growth in refining and energy distribution. This acquisition would mark a significant shakeup in the U.S. refining sector, promising new leadership and investment in one of the country's iconic oil companies. We'll move on now to an incredible development in the nuclear sector, as Holtec International has secured a $1.52 billion loan to bring Michigan's Palisades nuclear plant back online. The plant, which was shut down in 2022, needs significant repairs, including work on steam generator tubes identified by recent inspections. Holtec had initially aimed to restart operations by late 2024 or 2025, but regulatory approvals may extend the timeline. The project is seen as part of a broader effort to increase U.S. nuclear power capacity as energy demand continues to rise. Before we move on to our next story, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of the BIC Magazine Weekly Industry Report is brought to you by Draeger Rental and Safety Services. From daily operations to large turnaround and shutdown projects, partner with Draeger for smart technical solutions that protects, supports, and saves lives. To learn more, visit www.draeger.com. For our next story, ADNOC, Abu Dhabi's energy giant, has made its largest acquisition to date with a $16.3 billion deal to buy German chemicals company Covestro, including $3.3 billion in debt. This move is part of ADNOC's strategy to expand its footprint in petrochemicals, gas, and renewable energy. The acquisition, subject to a minimum acceptance of 50% plus one share, comes at a critical time for foreign takeovers in Germany. However, ADNOC has pledged to maintain Covestro's autonomy and protect its operations. Finally, we'll wrap things up with a deepwater development in the Gulf of Mexico, as Enbridge has announced plans to build, own, and operate crude oil and natural gas pipelines for BP's recently sanctioned Kaskida development. The crude oil pipeline, Canyon Oil, will have a 200,000 barrel per day capacity, while the natural gas pipeline, Canyon Gas, will transport 125 million cubic feet of gas per day. Both pipelines will be supported by long-term contracts and are set to be operational by 2029, with an investment of $700 million. This expansion strengthens Enbridge's offshore and U.S. Gulf Coast presence. And with that, we come to a close on this week's episode of the BIC Magazine Weekly Industry Report. You can head over to bicmagazine.com to read the full stories discussed today, and make sure to follow us on all of our social media channels so that you never miss out on the latest developments, updates, and announcements from the energy sector. Have a great day, and remember, it's what we do together that counts. Thank you again to Draeger Rental and Safety Services for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure to visit www.draeger.com to learn more about Draeger's smart safety solutions for your facility. When safety matters, rely on Draeger, technology for life.